Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Medicine for These Times. I am honored to have today's guest joining me all the way from Australia, Brigit Esselmont. Hi, Brigit. Thank you for being here.
Hi, it's so good to be here.
So good to have you. So, Brigit is best known as the best-selling author of Everyday Tarot and the founder of Biddy Tarot. An intuitive entrepreneur, Brigit has helped millions of people all around the world discover how to trust their intuition, access their inner power, and bring the divine into their everyday life using tarot as a guide. On a mission to bring tarot out of the closet and into the mainstream, Brigit believes that tarot is a modern intuitive tool for purpose-driven people who are ready to live life at their fullest potential. No crystal balls or crushed velvet required. Brigit has been featured in the Huffington Post, Mind Body Green, Refinery 29, Hello Giggles, Body and Soul, Oprah Magazine, and on numerous podcasts, including Being Boss, Truth Telling, Hippie Witch, Body Mind Musing, and the I Am Goddess Collective. She has also appeared on stage in front of live audiences across the US and Australia. When she's not teaching, coaching, or flipping tarot cards, Brigit loves spending time with her 2 daughters and husband on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. Brigit, it's so interesting. Many years ago, when I first got into tarot and my friend gifted me my first deck, and I said, how do I learn how to use it? She actually had said, well, there's this great website, Biddy Tarot. And that was my first exposure, that and a book that she gave me. So I just have to honor you to be at this kind of full circle moment on my own personal path with you and your website being my first exposure to tarot. And by the way, it's still one of my go-to resources. But I always love to know, how did you make an entire business out of tarot? What led you on this path and your soul's purpose? I'm curious what your story is to get here.
Fabulous. Well, I hope you've got a cup of tea and a little while, because my journey started all the way back in 1999. So I got my first deck, I think, in 97. I was about 17 or so then. And I just started learning the cards. And I thought, maybe I could just start a website. And, 1999, we're talking about like birth of the internet time. So I'm studying at university. I'm doing a commerce degree. And then I'm studying tarot on the side. And I think, maybe I'll just learn how to write HTML. And I start creating this very terribly looking website. And I just posted everything that I was learning about tarot. And it really just stayed that way for a good 10 years. It was just a passion project while I was working my way through university and through corporate. Then I think it was around maybe 2009, I found the book, The 4-Hour Workweek from Tim Ferriss. And, love it or hate it. What I got from it was like, wow, I could take this passion that I have for tarot and just see if it's something that I could earn an income with. And then I started turning everything that I'd been writing online for the last 10 years into an ebook. And I was starting to offer tarot readings. Again, all the while working in corporate. I was studying a master's degree part-time. And then I had my first child in 2009 and then 2011. And so it just started to grow just by following a passion and following like a thread that was like, oh, this is, a fun, happy project. By 2012, I'd managed to create a business that had the same amount of income as my corporate job. And I thought, great, what am I doing going into an office every day when I could have this beautiful freedom and flexibility and also do something that I'm really passionate about? And I thought, even if the business just stays as it is, like this is a great financial support for my family. But of course, if you know much about me, I'm quite a high achiever. So I just was like, okay, no, actually, I can see all this opportunity here. I want to keep growing it. And what it has developed into now, what are we, like over 10 years later, is one of the most well-known tarot websites online. Anytime you look up a tarot card, you will find Biddy Tarot typically up the top. And we have a whole heap of online tarot courses to help people learn to read tarot. We have a tarot certification program because I really believe in helping tarot readers to establish themselves, legitimize what they're doing, create that level of professionalism in the work that they do, and then be able to go out into the world and be positive influencers and to create empowerment for their clients. So our certification program certainly helps that. Plus we've got other things like a membership site, we've got books, tarot decks, like you name it. And we've just completely blossomed into, a one-stop shop really for tarot lovers.
I love it. And I love this story that it really just came out of this passion and also, this curiosity for sharing what you were learning, just putting it out there. Now, I have a corporate background. I spent 15 or probably more, actually, hate to think about those days, years in corporate before I became an entrepreneur. And I do know I was always kind of like the weird one. And I'm curious, especially, being in Australia, being in corporate, and back then, I'm curious if you were considered like that woo-woo, were you getting judgment? Did people think you were kind of crazy? Because I know there's a lot of concern out there. Even today, even this world that we're in today, I get clients who come from very traditional corporate backgrounds who are afraid of what people are going to think when they find out they're actually spiritual and doing astrology and working with tarot.
Yeah. So initially I was really cautious about who I wanted to share my hobby or passion with. And that's actually why I have the name Biddy Tarot, because any time I did something in tarot, I would go by the pseudonym of Biddy instead of Brigit, because I wanted to keep this separation. But what I found over time was when I did kind of build up the courage to say, hey, I read tarot cards, more often than not, people were fascinated. They're like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Or I even remember being in some everyone's in their suits doing some stupid business networking thing. And I'm talking to a man, in his 50s. And I thought, oh, stuff it. I'll just talk about tarot. And he's like, yeah, great. I've got my own deck at home. And so it really surprised me actually that the mindset was quite different. And what I realized over a longer period of time was it actually depended a lot more on my mindset. So when I showed up to a conversation and I felt nervous or I felt like, oh, this is too woo-woo, then I'd often have that reflected back to me, right? But if I could show up and be like, I know the value of tarot, I know the value of my business, I know just the value of our readers going out and helping other clients. I feel that through and through. So these days, if I talk to someone about tarot and they have a little bit of a, nervous reaction, I almost feel just compassion for them because, this is such a beautiful, powerful tool. I believe wholeheartedly in it. And I almost feel a little bit of sadness for folks who, aren't open to experiencing what tarot is really about. And a lot of that, has a lot to do with all of the misconceptions that are out in the media. You go and watch a movie, they're pulling the death card, someone drops dead. It's all like witches around their cauldrons. So there's a lot of negative media, which is really also very unfortunate. And I think a little bit unethical in a way for portraying tarot in that way. So yeah, I think these days I've just learned to really embrace it. I speak from a real place of truth around it, and I can see that resonating. Even I've worked with a group of many groups actually of entrepreneurs who are in their normal bricks and mortar type businesses, air compressors or videos for the army, whatever it might be, and these folks are actually really open to experiencing tarot. And it's all about what energy do you give it and how do you share it in a way that is creating that curiosity, I suppose.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, it's like you said, curiosity. And of course, there's still going to be people that, are maybe curious, but even judgmental. I mean, it happens. There's 8 billion people on planet Earth and not everybody's there yet. But, I love that you just forged ahead with something you really believed in that you loved. Now, I always talk about this idea of soul's purpose. You were working in a corporate job, which was probably, it has that security or that air of security, right? That false illusion of security where you have an income, you have a health insurance, things, it's kind of like you're doing the daily grind and then you're building this business. And before it hit that income level where you're like, wow, I could actually make more money with this, I'm curious, did you have any of these kind of psychedelic-like experiences as you were coming into your soul's purpose during those many years you were running it as a hobby? Like, do you remember any significant moments where it really felt like your soul was guiding you versus just, just a hobby and you're like doing this on the side? I'm curious if there are any, non-ordinary states that came up on your path there.
Yeah, so for me, like I've always been intuitively connected, and I remember distinctly as like a 14-year-old, I desperately wanted to improve my psychic skills, and I would get up at 4 in the morning and I'd do candle gazing, and I'd do those little ESP cards, the extrasensory perception cards, and try and guess what's on the other side. Like I was very determined to, develop these skills, and I don't know where it came from. I think it's past life stuff, right? So I've definitely had this in my life, pretty much all of my life. And even throughout corporate, I would say I was a grounded and connected person. When I look back to like then as compared to now, like I'm just poles apart. My spiritual evolution and development is always growing. But even around that time of making the decision, do I leave corporate to go and be a tarot reader? And I was doing so many tarot readings, and I would get my readings were going from like reverse cards, which are typically a bit like, no, it's not really the right time and you've got to do a little bit more introspection. And then they all flip to like upright cards. I'm like, okay, green lights, green lights. And then I'd go and ask the universe, I'd say, all right, I want to have this income this month. That'll be a sign that I'm ready to go. And it would go, boom, here you go, done. And I go, okay, let's do another month. Let's try it again. And then another month would happen, boom, there you go. I was like, okay, I really just need to know 100%. So we did a third month, same kind of things, hit the same targets. Okay, another green light. I had dreams like that were really like where I was telling my friend, I'm leaving, this is it. And I think throughout my entire life, I've always been intuitively guided and intuitively led. And the more that I open up to that in different ways, the more that I can see that alignment to the whole soul purpose and how that starts to really play out in this life. Yeah.
I love this story. I love it because it's so common that we look back to when we were much younger and what we were already intuitively doing. I don't think at that age we think about like, oh, I'm going to choose to become a psychic. It's like, I just really was interested in this. I used to be the same way. I look back on my childhood and I was like, wow, what I was really into at a very young age has kind of come to this place later in life where I'm actually doing what I was here to do at the age of 8. Like playing a game and pretending this and then, having this knowing, which I always wonder, it really is like, is this just our soul knowing who we are here to be in this lifetime? And then we spent all these years, kind of going these other routes to finally get there. I also love that you just mentioned using the tarot to guide you. And now I have this experience where, sometimes I'll pull cards, usually depending on what it is, a sales call or working with my clients or my mastermind. I'll like drop in and just kind of be like, okay, well, what is today's call going to be? I don't actually plan everything that far in advance. I have this general gist and I'll just get this like complete intuitive download. And then it's always the same thing that my clients are already talking about. But here's what I've seen. And I had this friend years ago who actually turned to the tarot cards for every single decision she made. And I used to laugh at her because I was like, wait, can you just like actually find out what you're really feeling? And I always wonder, like, where is this point between maybe people depending too much on turning to a divination kind of system of sorts, whether it's tarot or something else, versus like the deep intuitive knowing? And where is this point where it comes together where you can actually maybe use it for your business or use it to make big decisions or use it to grow and make money or quit your job? Do you ever run into this, or is this just my one friend that
No, this is real. So there's a few layers in there, and I'll talk first about that kind of dependence on tarot, and then I'll talk a little bit about how I'm using tarot in my business as well. But yeah, firstly, like what can happen is we can turn to tarot as almost like a crutch to making decisions and being able to move forward. Like everything is like, oh, well, just got to check my tarot cards, or I've got to go and see my psychic reader. And what's happening when you're in that state of mind is instead of turning your attention inwards and accessing your inner power, you're actually leaking it. You are going externally and sourcing all of that information from someone somewhere else. So whether it's a tarot cards, whether it's a psychic, whether it's even like, a business coach who's going to have the magic formula to solve all my business woes, right? Like I think we can probably all pinpoint a time in our lives where we've been in that state where this energy and power leakage is really happening. And so the same thing can happen with tarot. But the difference is, like, when we look at tarot as an empowerment tool and we apply that lens, how is the tarot empowering me right now? How is it bringing my energy back in and just being like a guide or a fuel to my own intuitive sense? So for me, I used to do big tarot readings. I think they're really fascinating. They're great, like on, say, a birthday or something like a big event. But I do less and less now because the tarot cards have really helped me to listen to and trust my intuition. It's almost like people often think, oh, I've got to be psychic to read tarot, but I actually think like tarot helps you become more psychic or intuitive. It's a bit like the training wheels to building up our own intuition. So I think the more that we can use tarot as just a reflective tool, something that helps us bring our energy back in, reflect, connect, and then move forward, to me, that feels like the most highest, vibrational state of using tarot. And you just got to have that lens on, right? You've got to be just aware. Am I feeling empowered or disempowered right now? What's feeling good and what's not feeling good?
I love it. And actually, I had never thought of that, but you're totally right. It is just this intuitive process. And of course, everybody listening probably knows how many times have you pulled cards and then it tells you something that you kind of already know. And it's just like, okay, now it's a confirmation of what I already felt, or, oh, that's something I maybe was doubting, but now it's guiding me in the right direction. But I really love what you said. It's like really teaching us how to really turn inward and know our intuition and know ourselves. I actually had a friend who got to a point, and I'm curious what you think of this, where she would just, instead of pulling a card, would actually pull a card in her head, like intuitively ask for an image, and then it would show. Have you ever heard of that? Because I always thought I'm like, oh, why not?
Yes, yeah, I have done that. When I haven't had a tarot deck around and I just am trying to tune into something, I will kind of, in my mind's eye, just whatever card I see first will be a symbol of what I need to know at that time. And we can use cards, we can use symbols, we could use a picture. This is just really about how do you access your intuition to give you that guidance. I think what I love most about tarot is, even for me, I have a strong intuitive connection, and what I appreciate about tarot, it just helps me go that next layer deeper. My conscious mind will see things and access things, but I pull another card just to go, all right, well, what am I not seeing here? What else do I need to access or understand? Or, similar to like your example, it's about when you're tuning into your business coaching clients or a session that you're about to run, it's really about asking the universe, okay, where do I need to focus here? And I just wanted to share too, like when I'm working with my coaching clients, I'm now in the practice of pulling a card each week for guidance. And it's not really like a tarot reading per se, because that doesn't quite feel aligned for me. But it's more about, here's a lens or a filter that you might be looking through. So one of my clients just recently, I pulled a card, it was around inner voice, which is the High Priestess. I'm like, well, maybe it's a good time just to meditate and go within and so on. She's like, oh my goodness, I've just had this reading yesterday, and what they talked about was going within and listening to your inner voice and so on. And so she's been applying that to her business and her relationship with her business. And it's just been eye-opening in the last few weeks how that's landed for her. So it's just like little breadcrumbs, little nudges from the universe that can really just support us in reconnecting to like soul purpose again.
I love it. I love these stories. They're just like, those are the ones that light me up because it's like, okay, yeah, all the answers are really like inside if you're now getting this confirmation over and over and over and over. And then there's probably that part of her that knew, oh, this is what I could use. This is, what's coming through me right now. Now, I'm curious, in some psychedelic therapy sessions I've had or psychedelic sessions I've had with plant medicines, various different medicines, the person that I've worked with or various people that I've worked with will actually pull cards to help guide the actual session. And I thought that was interesting when this first happened. I was like, well, wait, is this going to affect my journey? Or, is this to really tell us like what it is that we're looking for? And I'm curious, have you heard about people working with the tarot or any kind of oracle cards in a psychedelic space, like maybe beforehand as a preparation or as an integration tool? Do you know anything? What are your views on that?
So I think anytime you're kind of going into an altered state, whether it's through meditation or psychedelics, plant medicine, and so on, I think the tarot can play such an important role. And so even just pulling a card for, firstly, like the intention setting. What is it that I am wanting or needing to receive in this session, in this experience? And then pull a card and just see what does that show you? I've got a card deck here. Let's just see. So, interesting. So like this is the Osho Zen Tarot and the card is slowing down. So, okay, I might go into that experience with an intention of how can I slow down? And then even as you're starting to enter into that altered state, you might even go in with another intention. Maybe you're like, okay, slowing down. Well, there's another card that really reminds me of slowing down. And maybe it's actually about the hermit, for example. Okay, I really want to embody the hermit. The hermit is this wise old man. He's been walking along the mountains and he's just guided by his inner light. And it's really about him just trusting his own inner guidance and taking one step at a time. And so you might even hold that intention of slowing down and trusting your inner guidance, and then move through the experience. And then, whether that like drops in as like throughout your full experience or not, it doesn't really matter, but it's one way of just supporting that intention and then that entry point. Something else that I've used, like after I've had a more altered state experience or a more like a deep meditation, is to use tarot for the integration process. So, the day after I might go sit out in nature. I've got a really beautiful place where no one is at all and it's just surrounded by beautiful ponds and rocks and rainforest. And, I pull a few cards and just let it show me what is it that I need to integrate here? What do I need to know? And I don't need to ask like really targeted questions. Oh, what did that thing mean? Or what did that, experience mean? But just show me a few things that will just help to deepen my understanding and my experience more. So yes, I think that tarot is a beautiful partner to these types of experiences. And I always have like this dream that, yes, you could almost take something like the High Priestess and almost theme a full experience or a meditation around that. I often do like meditations with the tarot cards. So, just short, like 15-minute meditations where you visualize the card, you almost step into the character of the card, you become that. And then you really embody and experience that energy, and it's incredibly powerful. So there are so many different ways to play with that archetypal energy as well.
Hey everyone, just a quick break to remind you that the True Path Entrepreneur Group Mastermind Program is open for enrollment now. We start at the beginning of 2024 in January, but we are starting to take applications now. If you'd like to learn more, you can check out the Mastermind webpage on my site at bethaweinstein.com/mastermind. This is a 12-month group community-oriented mastermind program where you learn how to start, grow, and get clients in your business so that you can help more people, make a difference in the world, and do work that you absolutely love. This mastermind program is designed for new and early stage coaches, healers, psychedelic entrepreneurs, therapists, and anybody who wants to do transformational work in the world and wants to learn the exact steps you need to know to grow your business to the next level, to be able to share your unique medicine and make a difference in the world. So again, that's bethaweinstein.com/mastermind. The True Path Entrepreneur Group Business Coaching Mastermind Program is open now. It's so funny. I just had this intuitive flash about a moment during a plant medicine journey with some friends. I don't know, maybe, who knows, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. And I kept getting this one vision, and I kept saying to my friend afterwards, I'm like, I think it was a tarot character, but that was when I was like really early in, and I didn't know all the, who was what and what's this. And I kept describing it, and I was like, oh, it's just this like woman with arms open, and then this like sun and this light behind her. And I actually couldn't even tell you what it is now, but it was coming through as a character, and it wasn't me personally, but it was representing me. And I worked with that image for years. And then I actually started seeing it in a different image manifest during meditation, regular meditation, as a certain Egyptian goddess, Sekhmet. And it was very strange how it kind of morphed. And this went on for years, like years and years, where there was just this character. And I actually still don't, I think I had found out, and I was like, oh yeah, it's whatever. I don't remember the queen. I don't even know. I don't even know what it was, but it was just this one image. And I think I maybe in the past was shown it on a deck, but it came through so like persistent, it was like very persistent. It wasn't just like a flash during a psychedelic journey. It was like the theme. And then it became this like guiding image. And it was when I was also going through a big transformation in my life, really stepping into entrepreneurship on a deeper level, like coming out into the public, owning my light and like standing in my power. It was an amazing image. So I love that view. Yeah. Any thoughts on this?
Yes. Oh gosh, many. So one of the cards that I've been journeying with a lot recently is the High Priestess. And it's been so interesting to have experienced firstly what felt like an initiation with her, where I met her and I was like, I just admire you so much. You're so amazing. And then she turns around to me and says, Brigit, you are the High Priestess. And she adorns me with her like crown and her robe. And I'm like crying and crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I would have these other experiences where she keeps calling me in. She's like, come on, it's time to step up to be the High Priestess. And my most recent journey, I just locked into that place immediately. And it's like, yeah, this is it. I like fully own it. And actually, it's funny because this is our Biddy Tarot deck, which has the High Priestess right on the front.
And that might have been what I saw too.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Like a woman standing tall.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
and
so beautiful.
The moon. And this is also, now I have her on my phone as well. But one of the other experiences that I've had is where I've actually journeyed and almost met all of the major arcana cards. So there's something in tarot called the Fool's Journey, and the Fool goes along and he meets his different guides along the way. He meets, from the Magician to the High Priestess, all the way through to the World card, which is the end of the major arcana. So these lessons and these guides. And I just started playing with that concept while I was in a deep meditation. And it was the most amazing experience because I was embodying the Fool, and I was going along and I was meeting all of these different major arcana cards and embracing and embodying each of their unique energies, but also their wisdoms. And they could pass on to me what they have, like what is symbolized in them, what is their archetypal energy. So again, I think just it's a gift being so close to something like tarot, because when you do go into a more altered state or a deeper meditation journey, these things have such deep symbolism within them, and there's so much energy stored within the tarot cards as well. So it fuels it in just beautiful ways.
Wow. Oh, so beautiful. I know. Now I'm like, well, I want to dive in deeper. I mean, these archetypes, it's so interesting because I've actually, had clients that work in the realm of psychedelics and Jungian psychology and mythopoetic work with the archetypes. And I've actually done a training program where I did kind of like a psychedelic facilitator / coach training program where we actually did a lot of this work where, a lot of the visions and a lot of the experiences that we have under the influence of a, plant medicine or a psychedelic medicine of sorts, doesn't necessarily mean what we think it is. And this has been discussed a lot. A lot of this is through some symbolism. This is archetypal lessons or, psychomagic that is, being discussed through these visions. And it's not literal all the time. I mean, maybe sometimes it is. Like once in a while, I'll get a flat out like, oh, you forgot to tell that person this. Okay, maybe that's a vision that's straight up. But when there's these symbolic things that come through in these journeys, it's really good to understand the archetypes and the journey that you just mentioned of, okay, well, this is kind of this journey of the human soul incarnated and what we have to go through and the lessons we have to learn. And each of these cards has the shadow side and the light side and the lesson. And this is an amazing integration tool that can be used so that people maybe can make more sense out of what they just had happen in their 5-hour journey just now,
Yes. Yeah. And I think too, what's special about tarot is, you don't need to be like a tarot master. You don't have to have studied it for 10 decades and what have you. Even just the very act, if you can pick up a deck and you just pay attention to the imagery of the cards, there is so much deep symbolism and meaning behind those cards. All it needs to do is just lock into your subconscious mind and you will tap into a collective consciousness or unconsciousness anyway. And so when you're in a journey, it's just simply those symbols will start to play out and you don't need to consciously know what those meanings are, but you can trust that on this collective conscious or unconscious level, it will play out in exactly the way it's meant to play out. And so it's just kind of like feeding your brain and your mind and your whole inner kind of energy with these symbols that are rooted in ancient wisdom and, in so many like hundreds, thousands of years. So just trust that imagery will play out. The energy will be transferred to you in some way or another without having to cerebrally go, oh, I know what that card means. It means this. If we want to find that out, you can just go to biddytarot.com and find out. But truthfully, just work with the imagery and the symbols of the cards.
Such an important lesson that you mentioned about the energy, because it is something, especially with people who are maybe newer into the medicine space or just starting to work with psychedelics, where it's very common and often I've seen it with other people where there's just so much meaning attached to something. And it's like, well, really one of the people I work with in Peru, one of my shaman, will say things like, he really believes it's like just energy flowing through and that's it. Like none of this, there's entities or this, it's like, okay, it's just coming and going like anything. It's the human mind that wants to attach and create this whole saga and story and like make some meaning. And, if we just let it like come and go, and then maybe there's something that starts to manifest if you start to work with it. There's a way this is the integration piece, work with these energies versus like going down the rabbit hole of attachment, which, I've seen people have what we might call like bad trips where there's just so much of that, the mind having to make so many stories up and maybe actually just understanding the symbolism, the archetypes, the fact that this is all just energy moving. I think personally it can actually allow you to have a better, whatever good or bad is supposed to mean, but, this better experience of just allowing the energy to move through you during, let's say, a deep meditation or a plant medicine experience. So I love this. I love that we're talking about this because it's making me understand why it could be used or how it could be used for before and after ceremonies or medicine work. But I want to ask you a little bit more about running a business on intuition. So you've built this empire, you're running this huge tarot company, you have all these amazing programs, you have, a whole amazing team of people. I'm always curious, because I feel like I run my business on intuition. I teach this to my clients, and then I also teach them a certain level of like practical. There's this reality that we live in, which is, okay, there's the earth, the 3D. I always wonder, when you are really tuned into running an intuitive business, have you ever, like, how do you know when to, doubt your intuition versus trust it? Or maybe have you ever had something come through that you thought was intuition and then you went for it and maybe the whole thing failed? Like, how do you explain that? What is your theory as to why things maybe didn't really work out? It's like, is that still in alignment to you, or is that just not in alignment because it didn't go well? What are your views? Because of course, out there on the internet, everybody has a different opinion on what alignment really is.
Yeah. Oh, wow. There's so much in this. I think I used to think that I was running my business really intuitively. And I was, and I always am. I know that I'm an intuitive person and being, and that will always flow out into everything that I do. But there kind of came a time where my business was rapidly growing. We had a team of 30 people at one point. And to be really honest, I was waking up in the morning just going like, oh my gosh, it's another work day. And that was so unlike me to be in that state, because this is a passion business and it's just fueled by like energy. And so I was hitting this period where I was just waking up just going, this is not what I want, and I was thinking, okay, what do I do? How do I get out of this? And I had hit burnout. And I think also by that point, I had been shutting down my intuition so much, and I was just working in this operational, like business mode, very much on the masculine energy side with very minimal feminine energy. And so even though I was operating within this spiritual business of Biddy Tarot, my individual experience of that was like, oh, this just feels like a grind. And so from that point, I just started to really shift my relationship with the business, and also to really bring up a team that could run the business without me. And so that really then supported me to have more spaciousness to then be able to connect in with my intuition. And this year in particular has been such a transformative year. Oh, look, here's the card I drew before our call today. Oh, it's called transformation. Yes. Because but that is definitely, this year has been such a huge transformation for me on so many levels. And I feel like I've finally stepped into a place of even more intuitive connection with the business and with myself. And now I guess for me, like it's been about having spaciousness. When I'm busy, when I'm filling 40 hours doing work, how can I be in an intuitive state? I really cannot. Like I have to schedule in my calendar 30 minutes for a meditation, right? That just doesn't work. But this year I've had more time, more space to be able to go and sit at the beach, for example, for hours and just look out across the water and just let my thoughts and my feelings just kind of process themselves. And as a result, I feel like I'm way more intuitively connected. We also made a decision this year to stop working with like business strategy coaches who were going to tell us what to do, because we realized that was creating too much like just fear and doubt and second guessing ourselves, where as an intuitive business, you are ideally learning how to trust yourself, not distrust everything that you've done because someone tells you that you could be doing it way better. So instead, we've worked with an energetic alignment coach, and we've worked with different practitioners to bring in a different vibration into the business. And I think it's all about kind of setting up this environment so that we have the space to be more intuitively connected. And what it helps me then do, like you were talking about, how do you know if a project is like the right one, or, have you ever been led down the wrong way? We've been led down the wrong way many times, but I always trust that it's all part of the process, right? It's all there to teach you something really important, so long as you take the time to process those lessons and integrate them. But equally, I guess my relationship with ideas and projects is feeling quite different. I used to be very planned, 12 to 18 months out. But now I'm really working with what's the energetics of these ideas. And, are they sitting close to me? Are they sitting far away? How could I call them in when they are like perfectly ripe, and keep them in the ether when they're not ripe? Like, I only want to receive the idea when it's ready to go. So there's a lot that I'm kind of playing with and exploring. And really, it just evolves over time. Every year, I will get deeper and deeper into this connection with intuition. So I might feel like now, oh yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I know that like in a year, 2 years time, I'm going to be like almost an entirely different person again, because it just deepens all the way along.
Oh, I love this story, and I love that you're like, yeah, we decided not to hire consultants that tell us what to do anymore. And it's funny because I do also believe, yeah, these lessons are in alignment. I went through this last year, the first time I hired a team of people that I kind of was on the fence about, and it was like coming from someone else that was like, oh, I had this great experience, and and I wanted to try it, but there was this piece. There was like something, and it was my intuition that wasn't 100%. And then they talked me into something that wasn't 100%. And I knew it wasn't. And I kind of was like, by then I was so burnt out that I was like, you know what, let's try it. And it didn't go as well as it could have or should have. The alignment was like, oh, okay, now I've learned like not to outsource that piece and to go a different route. And I love this because even as a business coach, I am constantly telling my clients, look, I'm here to help you be more effective with your intuition. Like, I actually don't give cookie cutter formulas. I don't believe in them because there is no one cookie cutter that works for everyone. I do give a certain level of like, processes, certain things to have in place so that it can be, running without you, or running a little more automated, or things can be easier to, like you said, free up your time to not work 5 days a week, to have more time to do your self-care practice or your meditation practice. And I'm constantly saying, like, look, no one's business can be outsourced to someone else. Like, it's your coaching, it's your healing, your therapy work, whatever it is. It has to come from within. And a good coach isn't there to tell you, like, here's the only way and go do it my way. That never works, because it's not true to your authentic self and your soul and your heart. So I love this, and I love that, like you said, playing with the energetics of like where it's at. And I've actually had that too, where I thought something wanted to be launched, put the whole thing together, and then there was just this moment where I was like, oh, it doesn't really feel right. It's like what is it, Big Magic, that book where she says like, a song or a book will come, and then it kind of like comes and then it like floats away. And it was like, maybe one day, or maybe it looks different in the future. But I love what you say about that. And I just wanted to reiterate this because, in this day and age, it seems like there's more people really tapping into their intuition, and there's also more people doubting that intuition. I think because of, social media, the world that we're in, there's so many people, turning to the external to learn, like, oh, let me just follow coaches on TikTok and see what they all have to say. And they all say something different. It's like, how do we really go inward? And I think this is the journey that humanity is on. And I'm curious, for you who's been doing this so long and in the world that you're in, I'm curious what you've noticed over especially the last few years. Like, have you noticed this happening more, where people are really stepping more into their internal process and their own intuition versus, like outsourcing, hey, Brigit, you're my coach, tell me what to do. I'm curious, like, what have you noticed out there in kind of the business world and the shifts in how people are running their business?
Yeah, I think we are definitely moving towards that more inward focus. And it's interesting because this cycles all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, which was about like using tarot as a crutch and becoming dependent on tarot to make any decisions. And a lot of that is about this leakage of power outside of ourselves versus bringing it inside. And so I think we've been wired to seek advice, seek, outward validation of what we're doing. That's a whole school system. It's the patriarchy. Oh, my husband gets so annoyed when I keep saying the word patriarchy. I don't know why. No, he's great.
Not anything against men. It's just against the whole system. Yeah.
Exactly. Which trains us to always be seeking outside of ourselves, which means that we end up in doubt. And what I have seen so much more is like the words, even just hearing the words intuition being used by top entrepreneurs and business owners. Sarah Blakely from Spanx is amazing at talking about the role of intuition in her business. I love her so much. I'm so inspired by her. Steve Jobs would talk a lot about intuition, Richard Branson, and we're hearing it a whole lot more. And, you're seeing like the whole psychedelics taking off in the entrepreneurial field as well. I think that really speaks to this movement and shift towards knowing yourself, because I think that's what is absolutely key when we're operating businesses and so on, is more about who are we becoming as leaders and as entrepreneurs of our own businesses, because that has the ripple effect into how our businesses are showing up and what they're doing. Something I talk about a lot, like in my manifesting work, is about this whole concept of be, then do. So if we can first really focus on the being state, being intuitively connected, being aligned, being spiritually connected as well, like all of the doing stuff, it just happens actually so easily and in flow. And so that's what I've learned, is to really shift my energy away from like 80% on the doing. What am I going to do? What projects will I do? And now I'm moving towards 80% on the being. Who do I want to be? How do I get my whole energetic system really strong? How do I line up all my cellular, framework and, get all of that whole energetic matrix all in alignment, so that when it comes to the time of doing, it just flows with ease. So I think we're moving a lot more towards this space. I don't know if it's just because I've got my lens on, like we put our own like bias on with it and only see what we see. But I'm definitely, I don't know, Instagram's showing me a whole lot more, so it must be true.
Must be, as long as we're talking about it. No, it's funny because I was just going to bring that up. So I've noticed, and it's my own, very much like you, I've been so moving out of the masculine for years and years and years, and way more into the feminine. And, honestly, things just keep getting easier, and things do, quote, manifest, clients come out of the blue and I'm not even doing anything, or all of a sudden, something like I have, my recent one was like, I think I want to go to Burning Man, but only if it's really easy and it just kind of flows. And then all of a sudden I actually hit a day where I was like, wait a second, how did I get this ticket and this camp and this flight? And like, it was weird. It was almost like I wasn't even aware of how that just manifested in like a 1 week period. But that's where I believe that there is this kind of feminine support, the universe, like the energetics of when you're really tuned into your intuition with the intention, and in that, what I call like the sovereign pillar of light in your energy, things do seem to be easier and they come to you more. But then there's these criticisms, we see people making fun of, like all the spiritual memes and all the people that are like, oh, well, people talk about manifesting your whole business and that's not true. It's not real. I try to take this balanced approach that we do need both, that there's kind of this energetic, and then there's also, yes, there's a reality. I am recording this podcast on a computer right now. That's not just this thing that exists. Well, although on a really deep level, it is just an illusion like everything else. But I'm curious, I'm sure you guys, because you run such a big business, you have a big following, do you hear like the haters out there? Like, oh, this tarot is the devil's work, or it's all BS, or, like intuition is a joke. You have to work hard, and this is only for, I've heard everything. Like, this is only for privileged people. I'm curious, what do you say to when you hear the kind of naysayers out there?
Like probably a good sort of maybe 5 to 10 years ago, I would take that stuff so personally, right? And I remember there was a time where I just felt like I was being attacked from all angles, and all, particularly within the tarot community itself, because here I was as a young, business-focused woman wanting to change the world of tarot, make it more modern and accessible, and feeling a lot of like, I don't know, almost like psychic attack happening from there. And that was like, that that was a lot of wounding, I think, that I experienced. But here's the thing, if I think of now, and I think of like, I just so believe in the work that we're doing. I believe in intuition. I believe in tarot. Like, it's just ingrained. Like, to me, it's just my whole way of being. So when someone's saying, oh, intuition is fake or it's not real and manifesting is fake, I can just see them for who they are, but it doesn't have to impact me. I just trust that, yeah, like we could all have our own different perspectives. I hope that there's a time that those folks will be able to see like the fullness and the beauty of this world. But I know what's true for me, and I guess being in that state, therefore I can also hold the space for others to have a different perspective. It's not like a personal attack. And here's the other thing. I think what's really important in spirituality is to have a sense of humor, have a little bit of fun. Like, if we take ourselves too seriously, like, that's kind of swung the pendulum a little bit too far. So bring on those spiritual memes and bring on those funny videos. In Australia would say, take the piss out of people. Like, I think it's kind of fun. Like, I think we just need to be playful as well in this space, because that is part of spirituality as well.
Yes, I love it. I know. I actually just before our interview, I had my mastermind clients on a call. And I assigned them, I was like, okay, in the next 2 weeks, you are playing. Like, just play, have fun, put your phones down, like, go do something that's out of your comfort zone that you haven't done in 20 years. Just go have fun. And I agree. And I do love that, this perspective on, there's always going to be someone that disagrees, and the best we can do to not take it personally. And really, like, because I also agree, I'm like, I've definitely had these kind of pseudo psychic attacks, or what feels like a serious psychic attack. But I think this is the journey that we're all on, is to really be in that like sovereign knowing of who we truly are, tapping in our intuition and knowing like, okay, well, if this is what your soul is incarnated here to do, there's always going to be someone that maybe doesn't like it or doesn't agree or has something to say. But, are you here to live your life for those few people or the hundreds of thousands of followers and people that are signing up to your programs? And you wouldn't be where you are today if you let those personal attacks get you down so long ago, especially if it came from within your own industry, which, by the way, the psychedelic space totally has too. It's like a thing where it's like, oh my God, maybe I should just leave this industry. And then it's like, well, you know what? There's always going to be someone like that.
And I think like, what a great opportunity to practice loving compassion, and to send these folks, like all the compassion, because no doubt they're feeling worried, they're feeling scared. That's what's influencing them to act in a certain way. And I can only wish for them that they can come to a place of feeling secure and good and in alignment and so on. And that we can also hold the space for being different and expressing ourselves in different ways. And we can all just show up as unique individuals, right? And at the end of the day, I can't be responsible for them. I'm not responsible for their actions and their words. I'm only responsible for me and for my energy. And so I'm always just focused on, what do I need to do to clear my karma, to feel aligned, to feel the highest vibration I can be. And that's my work. Like the rest, everyone can do their own thing. I'm going to stay focused on my lane.
Your lane, exactly. I know I do the same thing. I'm like, oh, this person's probably really wounded, and they definitely have there's always a trigger that's connected to a deep core wound that maybe they haven't processed out, and now they're just projecting it externally instead of staying in their own lane of light. So send them loving compassion, loving kindness, your true path. I love it. Brigit, I would love to give you an opportunity to share. What do you guys have coming up in the next, 6 to 12 months, especially as your business is changing and as you're like tuning in a lot more? What has been coming through you that's, if you can share, if you're allowed to share?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, like, if you'd asked me this a year or two ago, I'd know exactly what we were doing in the next 12 months. But the wonderful thing is, I don't know. But I do know that in the next few months, what we have been working on and what we'll be able to release to our community and the wider community is a program all about intuitive manifesting. And what I'm super excited about with this manifesting is it's not just like a typical manifesting program, like how do you manifest what you want? It's that, and it's got the extra layer of intuition and tarot. And what I've found in my own practice is that when I add in that layer of tarot and I'm accessing my subconscious mind, I'm accessing the whole energy like vortex and matrix and so on, then I can start to make things happen really fast and in flow. So I've taken everything that I have experienced and use in my own life, and we'll be launching the Intuitive Manifesting Program. I think it's September, October of this year, and that will continue to be available. So I'm really excited about that, because also what it means is, like, when I work with tarot, I'm working actually with it from a place of manifesting, how to use it to create your future and not just predict your future, right? Because it's all about that empowerment side. So I think this really underpins so much of what we do at Biddy Tarot and how we like to use tarot in that way of empowerment and supporting people to achieve their goals. So that's our kind of big focus. And then, of course, we have things like the Biddy Tarot Planner for 2024, which is really cool, with the monthly tarot card. And then we've got new moon, full moon tarot spreads in there. So that's really fun. And of course, we do have our Biddy Tarot certification program, which will open up again early in 2024, which is kind of our signature program for anyone that really wants to deep dive into tarot and really know and understand the cards, so that you can use it on your magical journeys and have amazing experiences and maybe support others to do the same as well.
So good. Well, Brigit, we have all your links right here in the show notes, so everybody can check out what's coming up. And that manifestation program sounds amazing. And I always tell people, look, if you're not really believing in manifestation, or you're not manifesting yourself, like, give it a honest to God try and experience how life becomes so magic. You know, it's just like, why not, if we have this choice to co-create our reality in this incarnation, why not choose that versus just kind of letting life happen to us? It's just so much more magical. So be sure to check that out. It was such an honor to have you here and connect like this. So good. This is a really beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for opening up this space so that we can connect and chat. And who knows? You might start using a little bit more tarot in your practice.
I know. Maybe I'm like, I have like three or four oracle decks and one tarot deck. Oh, actually, I have 2 tarot decks, but the other one is MIA somewhere in boxes. Boxes that I still haven't unpacked in the last few years. So we'll get it out. Thank you so much for being here. And everybody, will have another interview next week on Medicine for These Times. See you then.